Lisa, exciting stuff. Let's get to it because we want you to run us through it. We're going to start with the goalkeeper selection here. What do you make of who has been called up to this camp in goal?
21 players for Twyla Kilgore, the interim head coach for the U.S., and we have Jane Campbell, Casey Murphy, and Alyssa Nair. Alyssa Nair back in the fold. She was not called into the December friendlies in which the U.S. played against China PR. Jane Campbell, huge to have her back in there. She had a stellar season with Houston and became NWSL goalkeeper of the year. Poppy, 8 defenders called in. That is a hefty group out of 23. When you look at this, Crystal Dunn returning to the fold. She was not involved in December due to an injury, but otherwise, Jenna Neiswanger, NWSL Rookie of the Year, Naomi Gurma, Defender of the Year, and that's a whole lot of Gotham FC players due to the offseason in the NWSL. When you take a look at the midfielders that have been called in, 6 of them, and 2 of them playing overseas in PSG, and then of course Lindsay Horan with Lyon, Sam Coffey, Rose Lavelle, Olivia Moultrie, and Emily Sonnet. Rose Lavelle, this is just her second camp being called in. She was in December, and now she's in for this W Gold Cup after coming back from an injury that she suffered for a length of the 2023 year. When we take a look at the forwards as well, this is a big group. Mia Fischel with Chelsea FC. That is, of course, under Emma Hayes, who will be the U.S. head coach after the end of Chelsea's season. Midge Purse, Trinity Rodman, Jaden Shaw, Sophia Smith, and Lynn Williams all getting called in to make up these 23 players.
There's a lot to talk about with this group, but it's interesting as well, isn't it, in the timing of the competition for the U.S. women's national team, because obviously Twyla is in charge right now, but we know Emma Hayes is coming. So when you look at these selections, do you think it's a collaboration of them both coming together?
Yes, you do. When Twyla made the roster in December, it was in collaboration with Emma Hayes, and you have to imagine the same is being done here. They hired Emma Hayes knowing full well that she would not be able to step into this role until her season with Chelsea was done. So they hired Twyla Kilgore specifically to fill that gap, to work in collaboration with Hayes, to make sure that they are both on the same page in order of who they want to see more minutes from, how they want to see formation and tactical changes throughout the U.S. And that starts right now with this W Gold Cup in preparation for the Olympics and then ultimately the World Cup.
I think from a glance, when you look at it, there's a lot of big names missing, isn't there, which we'll get to. But I want to know who your standouts from this roster early on for early viewing.
I like the players that they've called in for the majority of it. Mia Fischel, this is a really good shout for her in the front line. She is a player that can add a little bit more depth in the front line for the United States. Midge Purse, another forward that had a tremendous season with Gotham, specifically that championship in which she had 2 assists and helped Gotham lift that trophy. But there's a lot of defenders on this list, frankly. I think when you look at that, that's a little surprising to me why there are so many of them called in. There's one player that we haven't had the pleasure of talking about yet because 3 players were called in just for training, one of those being forward Mallory Swanson, who gets her first call in after her injury in April where she bursted her patellar tendon. Now she's back in training. I think that's a really positive, bright light for this U.S. side.
When you look at the list of a whole and you talk about surprise inclusions, that's the first name that you put on, but are there any other surprises that you saw on this list?
Yeah, I think that when you look at surprises, I'm shocked that there are 8 defenders, frankly. I don't think we need 8 defenders, 4 center backs and 4 outside backs to be called into this list by any means. I would have preferred Twyla to eliminate a defender or 2 from here. Casey Kruger, I'm not sure how much that she can provide. I'd rather see more midfielders be called into this one. And the fact that we're missing Savannah DeMello as well, like that's a shock to me that she is only called into a training player throughout this camp. That's really big for me. And I'm just curious why they wouldn't bring in more midfielders in order to get them more reps and more minutes, because now is the chance to do it.
Well, Sandra Herrera, it's interesting, isn't it, I suppose, because a lot of people are wondering why she hasn't been included. Are you surprised that we are seeing the likes of her missing off when this feels like the perfect opportunity, especially with what's to come with the Paris Olympics this summer?
Completely. I mean, she is in training camp, so she will be there with the U.S., but this is a player that we saw start at the World Cup. Now, of course, that was under a different head coach and under a different tenure of the U.S. This is a new chapter and a new page, but but why not bring a player like that in who does have tastes of experience and was frankly thrown into the fire at the World Cup, and she did very well considering she had not had a single cap before she made that roster and got a start. I would have liked to see her at least have an opportunity to get more minutes, and being just a training player, she won't be able to do that.
What about the big players that are missing them? Because I think from a glance you think, okay, well, where's Alex Morgan? Where's some of the other big stars? Is this just the start of a new generation for this US women's national team, do you think?
It is, Poppy, and we saw that in the December friendlies for this United States side. They didn't call in Alex Morgan, Becky Sauerbrunn, two longtime veterans of this side. There are also so many other players missing. Sofia Huerta, Ashley Sanchez, Eme Vignola, Ashley Hatch, Alyssa Thompson, who was dubbed one of the new young superstars of this team.
Yeah, where is she?
She's not on this list. Surprisingly enough, her 18-year-old sister, Giselle Thompson, defender who just signed with Angel City, she's called in as a training player. That's a little bit shocking to me as well, a player that hasn't even played a professional game, and you've already touted her as one that can come in and make a difference, and you want to get her training minutes. But when you look at this midfield group that the U.S. has called in, there's only 6 of them, and Andy Sullivan is not one of those players who has been a tried and true 6 defensive midfielder for this United States women's national team. There is Sam Coffey on the roster and Emily Sonnet, who has slotted into that 6 role, but to leave Andy Sullivan out is a shock to me. She has experience, she has composure, she does so many of the little things correct on the field. Her passes are always succinct. She's in the right positions. She can block holes for defense, and it's a big missing hole that she's not there.
I'm interested as well about the goalkeepers. Who do you think is going to start out of that group? Is there a number 1 with the 3 going into this Gold Cup?
I think Alyssa Nair is still the number 1 for the United States, and she has been. She has a lot of experience there. Jane Campbell is now back in the fold. She was several years ago, and then she kind of fell out of favor and out of form. She's back in form, and I think it's a really good shout to bring her in and get her some minutes. Casey Murphy has been fighting for that number 2 solidified spot. This is an opportunity for Murphy to come in, do really well in training, hopefully get some minutes in this W Gold Cup, specifically in the group stage matches. That way she can continue to get caps. It's a little bit of rest for Alyssa Nair, and then Casey can establish herself as the number 2.
When you look at the age of a lot of these players, are we seeing a new era in the U.S. women's national team? Because some of these big names, they've been there, they've done that, but I like the youthful exuberance of this side.
I do too, Michael. Yeah, it's a lot of youth on this roster, and it's a really good thing. Now, there are some question marks that come with that. How are they going to be able to handle a really quick turnaround that is the Olympics? Well, they get to be tested with that at this W Gold Cup because it is a really quick turnaround between games. But the youth on this roster is exceptional. Jenna Nightswanger in the back line, Corbin Albert, this is her second call-up, Sam Coffey, Olivia Moultrie. These are all players, and Jaden Shaw, that are hopeful to be that next team for this United States side. They need minutes. They need caps. They need training experience, and now is the time to do that. It's not a quick turnaround from right now and the W Gold Cup until the Olympics. It's only 5 months. So this is an opportunity to get a lot of those players minutes, and that's why we don't see some of the veterans like Morgan and Sauerbrunn.
If you're looking ahead to the Olympics, how close do you think this roster looks to what we will see this summer with some of the big names missing, as you mentioned, like Savannah DeMello, Alex Morgan? Do you think that there's a possibility we will see them still in the summer, or is this the group that they would like to go with if they play well?
This is the group the U.S. wants to go forward with. I don't think we'll see Alex Morgan make her way back into the roster unless something crazy happens, but they want to skew younger. The United States needs to change up their formation in order to be at the top of their game again, and that includes bringing in different forwards in the front line that can combine, especially with the hopefulness that Mallory Swanson is going to be back in time for the Olympics. But a player like Mia Fischel that is on this roster, she provides a different look. She can play really well back to goal. She can drop into the midfield. She can combine well with the players around her. Jaden Shaw, another player that can play in the front line, play in the midfield. It's so much more versatility with this group that this is what Emma Hayes wants to go forward with.
It's nice as well for Emma Hayes to have players like Mia Fischel, who she knows very well, obviously playing with Chelsea. You mentioned this is a bit of a collaborated roster. How much will Emma Hayes impact these games coming up, do you think? Obviously, we know she'll be watching. Will she be on Zoom at halftime, do you think, with the group talking to them?
I don't think so. Just from what we saw in December when the United States played against China PR, Emma Hayes is still in the midst of a Chelsea season, a run for the WSL trophy, a Champions League trophy as well, and she has made it abundantly clear that Hayes is focused on her time at Chelsea right now. That's why they hired Twyla Kilgore, because they trust her in the interim to run things and run the ship. So maybe there'll be some conversations between game days, but no, game days are going to be fully under the control of Twyla Kilgore.
One player I'm interested about, Caterina Vicario. What's the latest on her status? Because she's reported to be back. Was it March?
Yeah, so Caterina Vicario unfortunately suffered an ACL tear, and she is still working her way back. She's not called into this roster. She's not called into the training camp because of some complications that have happened with her injury. Still hopeful for her to return. She is on that Chelsea roster as well, so she's in recovery and hoping to get back. That's a big name that U.S. fans are missing out on, and they want her. Hey, I want her on this roster, but of course we want her to be better first. I think the same goes for Mallory Swanson. Yes, we want her to be back, but if there are complications and your injury is going to take a little longer, get yourself better, and we'll see you on the pitch when you're full 100% ready to go.